think we all know that Facebook has some of the broadest targeting options available on the web, whether it's just based on behavior on the Facebook and Instagram platforms, or as they're browsing around the web. There are lots of ways to reach your target audience, and unless you go through and you click a bunch of buttons and you just go through everything that's in Facebook, it can be hard to know what targeting options are available. So in this video, I'm going to do all that clicking around for you. I'm going to show you all the different targeting options available on the Facebook network so you can start to figure out how to find your target audience. In Facebook ads, all of the targeting lives at the ad set level. So I've gone ahead and jumped into a placeholder campaign with a placeholder ad set so we can go through all the different targeting options. We're going to start by scrolling past the traffic, dynamic creative, offer, and budget and schedule section and come all the way down to audiences. The first thing you'll notice here is that we're going to create a new audience. You can use a saved audience, but to be quite honest, this video is going to be long enough, so we'll save that for a future video. And speaking of other videos, I'm also going to refer you to a different one for the custom audiences section. For now, let's just do a quick overview. The custom audiences section is where you can leverage any of the remarketing or lookalike audiences that you've created in Facebook ads. If I come over into this box and just check into it, you'll see here that Facebook opened up a little drop down that has all, lookalike, and custom audiences available. So you can select different ones. Right now we only have a handful of placeholder custom audiences. So if I scroll over to lookalikes, those aren't available because quite frankly we just don't have any. In the custom audience section, you'll see the original drop down because those are the only ones that we had available. We've got them based on page engagement, all that sort of thing. For a quick overview right now and kind of a teaser of that other video, I'm going to hop into Audiences Manager and show you how you can create a custom audience. If you're not aware, you can find Audience Manager by coming over into the business tools and opening this up. And for me, Audiences is a preset tool, but you can find it in the drop down below. In our Audience Manager, you'll see the same audience list that I had in the other screen. And if we want to create a new remarketing audience, we can come over into Create Audience and then select Custom Audience. Here you'll see there are a number of different audiences we can create. You can use them from your own sources, whether it's a website, app, customer list, or offline activity. And you can utilize Facebook sources, whether they engaged with a video, a lead gen form, your Facebook or Instagram accounts, the different posts that come from those accounts, or any of the instant experience, shopping, on Facebook listings, or events. So again, if you want a more in-depth rundown of each of these different audiences and what you can do to create them, I highly encourage you to check out that other video because it goes way further into detail than what I'm going to do today. All of these retargeting audiences that you can create, again, whether from your website or customer list, are going to be what's called the source audience, or as I usually call it, the root audience of your lookalikes as well. So if you do want to create a lookalike, you can come in here, check the box, you can come up to these three little dots, and then you can create a lookalike from it. So let's go ahead and do that. You then choose your location. So for this, I'm just going to use United States. You'll then choose the audience size based on the percentage of the population within that country. So for the United States, that's going to be about 2.4 million people every time you create a 1% lookalike. We do have a video. Again, I know I keep sending you out. We do have a video that talks about all of the best practices for Facebook lookalike audiences. So I encourage you to check that out when you're putting these together. But just for the sake of the video today, I'm going to go ahead and create this very basic lookalike audience. Now our lookalike audience is up here at the top. It's going to be processing for a little bit while it's trying to bring people in. It says below 1,000 currently, but it also does say ready. That's a little bit interesting. Let's hop back into the ad set so we can start to apply this to our campaigns. Now that we've created a lookalike audience, if we come into the custom audiences box again, click that, you'll see that the lookalike audience loads right at the top because it's the most recent audience. But if you have a lot of lookalike audiences, you can scroll over to that tab and it'll load all of the lookalike audiences that you have available in your account. So it's a pretty easy way to get these to apply to your ad sets if you want to use your remarketing or lookalike audiences or some combination thereof. For right now, I'm just going to leave this field blank while we go through the other targeting options. Next, we get to choose what locations we want to target with this ad set. It's defaulted to the United States, but you can come in here and click edit. And there are a few different options that we have available. First, we're going to choose from a drop-down of whether we want to target people who are living in or recently in this location, people who are living in this location, people who were recently in it, whether they live there or not, or people traveling in this location, meaning that the person's most recent location was within the targeted area, but whose home is more than 125 miles or 200 kilometers away from that location. So choose which one of these options makes the most sense for you based on your campaign goals, and then we get to choose the actual locations themselves. Again, this defaulted to the United States to start, but there are a number of different ways we can reach users on Facebook. You can come in here and click into the search locations option. And I did this because this is a very good overview that Facebook gives here. It says you can type in specific countries, states and regions, cities, postal codes, addresses, DMAs, or congressional districts. You can also add worldwide or global regions. So there's a lot of different ways that you can reach users on Facebook, whether it's at a state level, country, a specific address. There are tons of different ways that you can narrow down your targeting. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and just show you a couple of different ways you can do this. I'm going to scroll down a little bit because I know this is going to open up. The first is through browse. You can then either add countries, so you can target every country worldwide, so you can check that box if you want to. But then from this drop down, you can navigate into each of the different continents or high-level regions of the world and choose whichever countries that you want within this drop down. So if you wanted to go to Central America, you could check the box next to Belize. But for right now, let's hop back up and away from countries. You can also go to regions, which this is a little bit of a misnomer because they do use states and regions interchangeably, but that's not what these regions are. These regions are going to be more based on the types of technology or the types of economic areas that they have here. So you can do free trade areas, which if you open that up, it'll drop down a number of different free trade areas in the world. You can also find people based on the App Store regions. So if they have either an iTunes App Store, Android paid store, or Android free store. There's also emerging markets, the Euro area, lots of different regions that you can try to target here to find a number of different options. So I encourage you to look through those, see if each of those makes sense to you. So let's just say for sake of example, I wanted to target New York. I could come in here, type in New York, and now you'll see all the different options I'm given. I can target either the state, the market, the city, Manhattan, the specific borough within New York. I can target the city itself. Lots of different types of targeting options. There's even addresses down here that are in the UK and also in the United States. So you can choose which one makes the most sense. For right now, I'm just going to narrow down into the DMA region and have the map populate this way. Next, we can also use a pin and drop a pin on a map and target a specific radius around that. So you can kind of see it over here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on the target area that we have. And let's say we really just want to target a small area around Manhattan. I can come over here and click drop pin. I'll then have this little checkbox and crosshairs type of thing. I can put that right over New York City and click. And now you'll see that there's a little bit of a radius. Let me get rid of this DMA region so it's easier to see. Now we can see that we're targeting 10 miles around the specific area that I dropped the pin on New York City. You can then adjust this radius to be either more miles, up to 50, and the map will zoom out accordingly, or you can narrow it all the way down and take it down to 1 mile if you want to, but let's look and see what 5 miles looks like. Now we're very narrowly targeted on just Manhattan and kind of some of the surrounding area there. We're getting into a little bit of Brooklyn, so on and so forth. There is another way that you can target locations on Facebook, and that is adding them in bulk. Again, this is another area where I'm going to send you out to another specific video that we have. In the upper right, I will walk you through how to add locations in bulk to your Facebook ads campaign if you're interested. But for now, let's just stick on the targeting options that are right here. The last thing I want to point out is that everything I just talked about, where you can target specific cities, states, countries, all that sort of thing, you can also exclude all of those same levels by choosing this dropdown and clicking exclude instead. So anything you wanted to target, you can also exclude if you want to narrow down a specific area and make sure that your ads are not showing in that region, but are showing in a different one instead. Now let's move down into some of the more demographic information that we have available. The next targeting option is going to be on age. This one's relatively self-explanatory. You can click edit, and then you'll be given a drop down for the beginning age, which starts at 13 at the youngest, and you can narrow it down all the way to somebody who is 65. On the second drop down, you choose the higher age range that you want to reach. You can do either 65 plus, or depending on what your target was for the first one, you can narrow it all the way down again to 13. So you can choose a very specific age range of users, and this is determined by the birth date that they used when they signed up for Facebook. Another fairly simple one, whether the targeting options are all inclusive or not, is gender. You can click edit. You can target either all men or women on Facebook based on how you want to target users. The next option is where we're going to spend a good amount of time. That's detailed targeting. This is where we have a lot more demographic, interest, and behavior targets that we can utilize to narrow our targeting on Facebook. So I'm going to hover over this area and click Edit. And here we start to get into the bulk of the Facebook targeting we have available. So the first thing I want to run through is that you can come over here to suggestions based on if your account has been running for a while. Our account has not been running very long. There's actually never been an ad that runs here, but we do have some other example campaigns. So Facebook has decided that pay-per-click strategist or PPC strategist is a suggested targeting option. We only have one, but depending on how long your account has been running, you might have a lot of different suggested targeting options here that could be really useful for you. So I encourage you to check these out, see what Facebook thinks makes sense. But for now, we're going to go through all of the rest of the options that are available. So let's come up here and click on Browse to get started. These are going to be the three main categories, just like Facebook teased at the top: demographics, interests, and behaviors. Let's go ahead and open up demographics. Here are going to be the main categories. You can target somebody based on their education, financial information, life events, their parenthood status, relationship status, or their work. I'm going to dig into a couple of these for sake of example and the ones that I know are going to be potentially more interesting. First, I'm going to look into life events. You can get a bit of an overview here to see anniversary, away from family, away from hometown, birthday or friends of people, long distance relationship, new jobs, new relationship, newly engaged, newlywed. Lots of different things here. One of the targeting options that I find really interesting are around the birthdays. So you can target somebody based on their birthday month. So if they're born in January, February, March, whatever it is, you can target them based on the month they're born. Or you can target them if they have an upcoming birthday. So people who are going to have their birthday within 1 week. Is going to be an ever-changing set of users because there's always going to be a brand new set of folks that's going to have their birthday coming up in 7 days. But the part that I also like is this Friends of section. If you're trying to target people to get them to buy gifts for somebody, it's kind of nice to be able to target people who are friends of men with a birthday in 7 days, or friends of men with a birthday in 7 to 30 days, or friends of people who recently moved, or friends of newlyweds. Something along those lines. You can get in front of them, message to them and say, hey, this might be a good gift for the newlyweds in your life. Something like that. So this could be kind of an interesting targeting option depending on what you're trying to sell. So that's for life events. The financial option, I'm sure a lot of you are interested in. The options that we have here are just for income, and unfortunately they're currently only for the US, and you can target people only based on zip code level income averages. So this is going to be the top 10% of incomes for the US zip codes, top 10 to 25, 25 to 50, and then the top 5% of zip code average income in the US. So it's not going to target only the people who make a certain amount of money. It's going to target an entire zip code of users based on averages across the country. So it can be really helpful, but it might not be as specific as we all would like it to be. Okay, so I think you get an idea of how these different demographics are helpful. The last one I want to look at is work because it has a functionality we haven't seen yet. So let's open this up. We have some different options of employers, industries, and job titles. And I want to start off with job titles because we saw the PPC strategist show up. But for both job titles and employers, you'll see that there's this very faint magnifying glass over here. And what that means is this is not going to be like the other targeting options where you can choose a box from a drop-down like you could here for industries. Instead, you're going to click job titles and it'll open up a brand new search field. And this will search only the job titles on Facebook. So let's say we want to come in here and type in PPC. Here you'll see anything that Facebook thinks is related to PPC. So we see the same job title that we had before, and then we see Pikes Peak Community College. And that makes absolutely no sense for this example. But there are a lot of different things you could do here. So we could type in marketing, and now we get a couple job titles that come up: marketing director and marketing communications specialist. This is a good example because I think we all know that there are literally tens of thousands of job titles that people could come up with that include marketing in them. But in this example, Facebook only gives you 2. Just because you can think of something and you know somebody who has a certain job title or a certain interest does not mean it will show up on Facebook. This is a very common frustration that I run into, and I know a lot of other marketers do, but this is just how it goes. You need to type some things into Facebook, see what shows up. It's not always going to have all the options that you want, but you got to stick with what they provide. Let's keep going through the other targeting options available. So I'm going to back out of this. I'm going to close up work. And now let's go into the interest section. Here we have a number of high-level interests. Most of these are going to be relatively similar to some of the things that we saw in the demographics section. You can target people who are based on business and industry, fitness and wellness, food and drink, shopping and fashion. Lots of different options in here. And most of these are also going to be the same sort of thing where you can open up fitness and wellness. You can see that there are a lot of different targeting options available. So physical exercise, running, weight training, yoga, all this good stuff. And then you just check the box and that's what's available. Most of the targeting in the interest section are going to be this checkbox fashion. You're not going to have any where you get to search specifically. We'll get to that in just a minute. But first I want to look at the behavior information, because although this seems really tempting, it's not as robust as I think most of us would like it to be. And this also does change on different accounts, I've come to find. So if you see some options that are showing up in our account that you don't have, or vice versa, that's just the way it goes. They're not always consistent from account to account. So opening these up, we can target based on a behavior. So if somebody has an anniversary, but it only says anniversary within 61 to 90 days, kind of an interesting area. That's also something we can target in demographics, I believe. But then you can target people based on their consumer classification, expats, specific mobile device users, but I find this to be more impactful in the placements options, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. The one thing that I do like down here are these digital activities, because there are a few different targeting options here around people who used Facebook payment, which means anybody who bought something utilizing currency on Facebook. So anybody on Facebook Shop, Instagram Shop, that sort of thing. You can also target people who are Facebook page admins, or for example, anybody who is a small business owner, according to Facebook. There's a lot of different options that you can utilize in here. So take a look through those. Again, there's just not a ton available. So we kind of went through most of them. You can target politics. There's a little bit of purchase behavior, which in my experience, is only one box, and that's engaged shoppers. So anybody who clicked on a call to action button of shop now in the past week. So that could be really impactful, but that's also it. There's then a section for soccer, and then travel, which could also be useful. So people who are commuters, frequent travelers, just returned from a trip, that sort of thing. So that wraps it up for the different drop downs that we have available. But you'll remember when I was in the job titles section, I mentioned that sometimes you just have to type stuff in and see what shows up. So let's go ahead and do that. And I want to say that we're targeting people who are interested in running. You'll remember there was a checkbox that we could target in the browse dropdown, but it's just as easy for me to come in here and type that in. Now we can see most likely this first one of running as the dropdown here is an interest. You can also see Adidas running, but this is an employers. So these are people who work at Adidas, and there's only 3,900 folks there. Then there's also additional interests that weren't part of that dropdown, whether it's road running, trail running, long distance running, sprint, in parentheses, which is running, not sprint, the company. So you can keep those straight. There's also Running Scared, which is a film. This is why it can sometimes be frustrating to try and target certain things on Facebook, because you literally just have to type in a keyword and see what pops up. So for now, for this example, I'm just going to click running. And we can see that in that target region I set up earlier, there's 1.1 million people who are interested in running. So now I think you understand how the targeting options work and how you can find them either through browse, suggestions, or searching. So let's talk about how they play off of each other depending on the types of targeting that you're trying to use. So let's say we're also interested in people who are interested in Nike. So we can come in here and add in Nike as well. This is the same thing. Make sure you choose the right one, because the first ones are employers, schools somehow, job titles. What we really want is this interest, which is Nike Inc. Now that I've added this, you'll see that my target audience now went up to 1.2 million people, because what I did here is I added in new users. And if you see up here in this little icon, adding more targeting details here will expand your audience to include more people. So I basically just said anybody who likes running or is interested in Nike, please include them in my audience. If you wanted to instead narrow it down and say anybody who's interested in running and likes Nike, you would have to use this narrow audience function. So let's show what that looks like. I'm going to get rid of Nike up here, come down and click narrow audience, and then type in Nike. Find the right one. And now my targeting audience has gone down to 470,000 people. So again, this and must also match means that you're going to be targeting only the overlap of people who like running and Nike. So this is going to narrow your audience. So keep that in mind if you want to make sure that you're reaching only people who like both. You can also exclude people based on their demographics, interests, or behaviors. So let's go ahead and come down and click exclude. And this is going to exclude people who are in a certain group. So anybody who is on the outside and doesn't match the overlap we see above, they're going to be perfectly excluded from our campaigns. So let's just say for fun that we want to exclude people who like Adidas. That pulled the audience way down to 73,000 users. But now we're targeting people who like running and like Nike and excluding anybody who likes Adidas. So in this example, Nike or Adidas could use this. Nike could use this audience to target people that they know are more their core audience, or Adidas could use this to try and win over some interest from folks who like Nike but just aren't interested in Adidas stuff just yet. So there's a lot you can do to customize your specific interest, behavior, and demographic targeting based on how you have these boxes align and if you're narrowing or excluding different users and their interests. Next, I want to come down to this little box down here, which usually hides. It says Detailed Targeting Expansion. What this says is detailed targeting expansion lets us show your ads to more people, which may help you reach your optimization goal. All you can do here is either check the box or uncheck the box. Once we checked the box, we went from 73,000 users to 630,000 people in our potential reach. That is a lot of additional users, so I encourage you to use this box sparingly. In my experience, I use detailed targeting expansion only once I've seen my audience do well, and I can't necessarily find a way with different targeting options to expand it. So that's where I will create my targeting audience. I'll set it up with my 73,000 users by default. I'll run it for a couple of days, weeks, however long it makes sense. And if I'm seeing good performance, but there aren't logical expansion opportunities I want to add in here, I will then check this box and see if Facebook can use its machine learning to find other users like this targeting audience that I've set up and help me reach my goals. For right now, I'm going to leave it unchecked because this is an example. It doesn't really matter. Next, we can come down and choose the languages that somebody uses. Facebook is a global company and people speak a lot of different languages. So you can enter a language to show ads to people who use a language that isn't common in your location. Otherwise, leave it blank. Right now, you'll remember that I have this set up to target a specific area in the New York City area. If I want to target people who speak English, I should just leave this alone because most users in the New York area probably can engage with English. But if I wanted to speak specifically to anybody who speaks Spanish or Chinese, I can adjust that here. You can come in and click Edit, simply search the language that you want. You'll see here that I can include Chinese, which is all, or there are many different dialects of Chinese. So you can choose either simplified, traditional Chinese via Hong Kong, or traditional Chinese via Taiwan. There are lots of different options you can have here, but for now, again, we'll just leave this blank. The last adjustment we can make in this audience section is going to be in the Show More Options group, and it's going to be based on connections. So if we open this up, connections is here. Right now it says all people. We can click edit, and here Facebook will ask us to add a connection type. Scroll down a little bit, and in this drop down you'll see that you can choose a connection type based on your page, app, or events. And there's a custom combination we'll get to in just a second. Here you can target people based on how they have engaged with your page. So they can be either people who like your page, friends of people who like your page, or you can exclude people who like your page. Think of this in the exact same way as we used the narrow or exclude audiences above. If you were to add people who like your page, that's going to take that 73,000 users and narrow it down to then only the people who also like your page. You could also then exclude people who like your page, so you'll keep the rest of the users who aren't already liking your page on Facebook, but still are interested in running and Nike and are not interested in Adidas. So let's go ahead and choose exclude people who like your page. Then you'll just need to add the page here. Since this is a placeholder account, we don't have a page assigned. But once you do that, you can choose from a drop-down of all the pages you have available, and it will adjust the potential reach that you see in the upper right. I know I mentioned the custom combinations, so let's take a look at what that is. Here you can do the same functionality, but in a little bit more complex way. You can include people who are connected to, you can include friends of people who are connected to, or you can exclude people who are connected to your page, app, or event. So if you're trying to use a combination of all three and you really want to focus in on this, it can be really useful. So here you could say anybody who is a friend of somebody who's connected to my page or app, but also exclude anybody who is connected to my event. Lots of different combinations that we can have in here to make sure that you're reaching only the right users on Facebook. You'll notice down here in the bottom of the audience section, there is a Save This Audience section. You do not need to click this to apply the audience you've just created to your ad set. It's already applied. This is going to be for that saved audience thing that we talked about earlier, that again will come in a later video. The last way we can customize how we're targeting users on Facebook is actually going to be in this placements section, because this is where we'll control the different devices and operating systems that people are using. By default, this is always going to be the automatic placements, but you can open this up and choose manual placements. Regardless of what the different options are down below, you can then choose to include people who are on specific devices by clicking edit and then moving away from all devices to say either just mobile or just desktop. That's the most basic way that we can choose which devices people are on. But if we come down here and scroll all the way to the bottom of all these lists, there's also a show more options here. Here we can start to get much more specific on the types of devices that we're targeting. We can see there are specific mobile devices and operating system. So let's open this up. And the first thing you get to choose is whether you want to target all mobile devices or if you want to target only people on Android or iOS. Let's just say iOS, for example. You'll then see that it'll include iPads, iPhones, and iPods. You can then have specific excluded devices if you want to. So again, it gives you an example here if you can type in iPhone 5S for whatever reason. You can also choose your operating system versions. So if you have an app that needs a certain minimum operating system to function, you can set that in here and you'll see all the different versions of iOS. They have numbers. The Android is going to have some version of a candy name or like a candy bar, something like that. And you can set a maximum if you want to. So if you only want to target people who have iOS 10.3 or lower, you can do that. And the last thing we can do is start to control brand safety. I don't want to go through too terribly much of this in this video. I think this is a topic for another day, but basically what this section lets you do is prevent your ads from appearing within or alongside content that's not conducive to your brand. You can manage this from the brand safety controls, which is also in your business settings in the main navigation of Facebook ads. But here's where you can set up some specific ad set level inventory filters, block lists, live stream exclusions, and in-stream topic exclusions if you want to make sure that your ads show up only alongside very specific content. As you can tell, Facebook has a very robust set of targeting options, and there are a lot of levers for you to control to make sure you're reaching only the right users for your campaigns to hit your objectives. Hopefully this video gives you a lot more confidence to go into Facebook, set up your audience, and make sure that you know you're reaching only the certain intersections of interests, behaviors, and demographics that are right for you. Thanks for watching our video. If you thought it was useful, give us a thumbs up below.
We release a new video at least once a week, so if you want to get notified of when a new one comes out, be sure to subscribe to the Paid Media Pros channel.